So here I am in England, and we are going to do some green laning in that blue Discovery 4 that you see behind me. We've got a fair bit of recovery gear, and now all we need is the track, or green lane. So there's a fair bit of green. It is a lane, so I guess that's why they call it a green lane. We shall poke our nose down this track and see what happens. So a green lane is a UK road that isn't tarmac, bitumen or asphalt and is therefore green, and it's relatively small, so it's a lane. It is open to all traffic and are generally very old roads which have since been replaced by modern roads. Now the term green lane itself has no legal meaning. There's actually 4 different types of these roads. One is a footpath, which is for pedestrians only. Then you've got your bridle ways, which is for horses, cyclists and pedestrians. And then you've got boat, which is a byway open to all traffic, including motorcycles and cars. And finally, there's a restricted byway, and that is for pedestrians, horses and vehicles that are not mechanically propelled. Okay, so that is a public right-of-way, but not a through route for motor vehicles. These are byways, and there's even a note saying vehicular users please keep to byway and drive with care, and we shall comply with both instructions. Now I am no expert on green lanes, so if you're interested I very strongly recommend joining GLASS, the Green Lanes Association, and using their TrackWise 2 application to find green lanes which you can legally and safely enjoy. The legal status of any given road is quite difficult to determine, and you certainly don't want to be driving down roads that you shouldn't be. So what I'm going to show you in this video is where I went green laning in South East England, so it's not representative of the UK as a whole, only what I was able to do in a few days. So what terrains can you expect? Well, some green lanes appear to be pretty open with fields like this and good views. Others, you're getting a bit more narrow, but still fairly decent roads and not overgrown, and you can still traverse them fairly easily. But others, you're starting to see the undergrowth begin to close in, but still quite easily navigable. And we found quite a few where they really are quite overgrown, and you will in many cases actually be having the undergrowth touch your car. So I think if you're going to do much green laning, then you're going to have to accept that your bodywork is going to be in contact with the vegetation, and therefore you might need some form of protection such as vinyl wrap or PPF, and I've got a detailed video coming up on that. Or you could just apply something like a temporary bush skins layer protect as well, or just drive an old vehicle so you don't really care. And you can see here just how close it's got, and had to stop and try getting out the door with that. You've kind of got to move the car backwards and forwards so you can even get in and out of it. So this shows how narrow it is. Just about got through with that wing mirror, and that one is incredibly close as well. Now normally we'd run the Discovery in off-road height, but you can lower it down for access height, which can be helpful to get under trees, but even that isn't always enough. Okay, we have come to a problem. Even though the Discovery is in its lowest access point, as you can see, we are not going to quite make that. It will just start to touch, and unfortunately I can't really bring the car over this side anymore because this branch is going to get in the way, so pretty marginal. So driving down lanes like these, it's not difficult, but again your bodywork is going to touch the vegetation, and you wouldn't want to be meeting someone coming the other way, whether they're a walker or a vehicle or anything else, because it's just going to be really hard to pull over, and there's going to be a lot of backing up. So maybe some of these should be one way only. Some of the methods you can use to protect your paintwork include vinyl wrap with a colour change, as seen on my car here. I'll cover that in detail in the future. A clear film of PPF, paint protection film. You could simply accept the damage, or you could put some temporary protection on when you do your green laning. Now if you're looking for a real hardcore challenge, you're not going to find it when you're green laning, because green laning is more about exploring the British countryside, having fun with your friends and family, doing something together, and just sort of serendipitously seeing what comes next, as opposed to pushing your vehicle to the limit. This is probably the hardest obstacle we did. You can see that the wheels barely spin there before the traction control kicks in and pulls us through. Just nice and slow, and keeping the wheels straight as well, and not trying to steer out and not making extra ruts. And now here's an example of how to check a track if you're not sure. First real obstacle. So if we have a look at this, we can see some evidence of differential dragging here. We can also see motorbikes or something have been through the middle, and we can see that there's deep ruts there. Now what we want to do is ascertain just how deep those ruts are. The entry and exit's going to be fine, that's not steep, but how deep is that mud? I don't think it's going to be very deep at all. But what we can do, we can find this handy stick, and then we can use this stick as a depth gauge, and also, more importantly, a softness gauge. So what we do, poke that in there, and no great surprise, it's not very deep, but it's also not soft either, and over the other side is fine. So all things considered, we will leave the stick there for future use. There it is. So the people using this track will look at that stick and go, aha, that is a depth gauge stick. We can declare this one drivable because the entry is shallow, the exit is shallow. We're not going to run out of ground clearance, particularly not in an independent suspension, fully independent suspension Discovery. And we're not going to run out of traction either, because it's very, very hard bottom there. So we can continue. Very much pick where you stop. I mean, here you can see you can get out of the car easily, but other places it's literally impossible to get out of the car. Now the tracks themselves, you can see here that this is essentially just a road, and I think a lot of these green lanes are built on actual, I don't know if they're old Roman roads or formed roads, and they've just become overgrown and a bit disused, and hence they become these byways. Whereas in Australia, the four-wheel drive tracks are created by some bulldozer just lowering its blade and then just driving. So therefore, underlying the tracks in the green lanes here, you've actually got really good traction. And as you can see here, we're actually in a cutting. Look at that. I mean, that's clearly been cut to create this road, and this is the steepest grade we've seen all day. So you're not going to get steep gradients. So there's a real four-wheel drive track be going straight up there, for example. Now, we're not going to find a lot of water on these green lanes, but we did find this little stream, creek, river, don't know what you're going to call it, but it's not particularly deep water. It's also very hard bottom. We checked that out by going along the bridge before we drove it, so you can just go through very, very slowly, which is ideal for fording, and also means you're not going to splash water everywhere and cause erosion. My car does have a snorkel, but to be honest, I don't think you'd really need one for general greenlaning. Now, your car setup is going to vary dependent on the car, but essentially you want to engage off-road features. So that might be locking the centre diff or engaging four-wheel drive if it's part-time, use low range if you've got it, raise air suspension, and driving mode selections like mud ruts. It really depends very much on the vehicle. You should also consider lowering tyre pressures to 50% of the placard if the conditions are wet or difficult, but do make sure you raise them back to normal for your tarmac run home at highway speeds. Always go slow regardless of the vehicle, because that way there's the least impact on the road, the least impact on your car. The faster you go, you get things like suspension compression, reducing clearances. The slower you go, you're actually demonstrating more skill, not less. There's also less noise, and why rush? You're there to enjoy the countryside, and green lanes are pretty short. And if you do find someone coming the opposite direction, you're less likely to cause a conflict if you're moving slowly. Confident of your navigation, there may be signs like this. You may get phone signal, Google Maps may work, but you shouldn't rely on any of those, and use some of the excellent Ordnance Survey maps, some of the best in the world, to navigate where you're going, and pay attention to all signs you see and comply with whatever the directions are. Now, we did cross Salisbury Plain, or tried to in this case. It was being used by the military, so we couldn't go past these red flags, but if those red flags weren't flying, we could have crossed it, and that would have been quite an interesting view. Some green lanes exit onto relatively fast roads with poor visibility, such as this one. Now, what you're going to need to do there is sort of creep and peep very carefully, or maybe even send someone across the road to have a look and pick them up later on. In this case, it's dry. We've got a powerful all-wheel drive Discovery, but if it was wet and we had a part-time four-wheel drive vehicle with muddy tyres, then we'd definitely be at risk of skidding when we come out, or if this junction have to accelerate quickly away. So be aware of that as a risk with some green lane exits. And similarly, some green lane entries are unexpected, and traffic may not be expecting you to slow right down and make a tight turn, so manage that gap behind you appropriately. Now, for me, the essence of green laning is random serendipitous things you find, and this guy was out exercising his dog, and he asked if we wanted to take video of it, and I said for sure. So with his permission, we added the dog, and here's the Discovery going through the water, which is not part of a green lane. This is just part of a normal road. It's just a fairly shallow ford there, as you can see. It's just nice to come across that guy with a dog, have a bit of a chat, and then we both went on our way. So either he didn't, he stayed there, we went on our way. Also met this fellow who allowed us to film the release of his carrier pigeons. Didn't tell us the pigeons' names, so I don't know if any were called Speckled Jim. I was unable to determine how plump-breasted they were, and certainly not whether they were delicious. And back on Salisbury Plain, this is a tank crossing. The tank has to stop there to clean off mud, and the road's been reinforced so it can get across the road safely. And this is an Army AH-64 attack helicopter. So I just happened to be flying around at low levels. That was pretty cool to see. Didn't come right over us, unfortunately, but still always good to see those aircraft flying around. And this is a scarecrow. It's entirely unremarkable, but in Australia we don't really have them, so it's always interesting just to look at what's different from country to country, even mundane things like that. And then we were followed by this rather nice red Jaguar E-Type, not the sort of car you'd drive down a road like what we were on, unless you had a particular destination in mind. And this is one of several white horses carved into the side of the British countryside, and sometimes they're not just horses. This particular one is the Alton Barnes white horse, and it was commissioned in around 1812 by a chap called Robert Pyle, who paid someone at £20, which is worth about £14,000 in today's money. And there was a bit of scandal around that, so I'll let you read up on that and you can give yourself a bit of a history lesson. You can walk right up to the white horse and have a look at it and see exactly how it's made. It looks obviously quite different close up to what it does when it is viewed from a long distance away. One of the things I like about Greenlaning is that it always seems to end up at a pub of some description, and this one was a bit unusual because it was a pub right next to a canal to barge in, and then you can always take a look inside and get yourself a lunch and just see how different pubs are from place to place. Now, I don't think I was able to show you anything like the best of the green lanes in the UK, so I've taken this video from the Green Lane Association, which I think does show a more beautiful and scenic view of the world. And I would strongly recommend, as ever with any form of off-roading or four-wheel drive, get involved with the local association, take a tag-along tour, do some training, understand what you can and cannot do, and generally be prepared, and then you'll have a fantastic time just exploring the countryside and just seeing what happens when you turn the next corner.